You are handed a gun and told to kill birds. Not enemy soldiers, not a human threat. Birds. 20,000 of them. The year is 1932. The place is Western Australia, and the Australian government has just declared war on the emu. You have 2 Lewis guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. You have survived Gallipoli. You have survived the Somme. You have crawled through mud that swallowed men whole, and you have watched the sun rise on mornings you had no right to see. And now a government official is shaking your hand and telling you this will be straightforward, a few days at most. He has never seen an emu. There is a moment, a specific moment, when you fire a full drum of ammunition into a running emu, and it does not fall. 97 rounds. A Lewis gun drum holds 97 rounds. You watch the animal reach the scrub line and disappear. You stand in red dust with an empty weapon and no explanation. You have been in active combat. You know what it looks like when something should be dead. This should be dead. It is not dead. The newspapers will call it the Great Emu War. They will print cartoons. A member of Parliament will stand up and ask, on the record, how it is possible that the Australian Army lost to birds. The Minister of Defence will earn a nickname he will carry for the rest of his life. The ornithologists, the people who study birds for a living, will weigh in with something close to admiration. You will not find it funny, not yet. You came here because the farm is failing. You came here because a government that gave you land after the war now refuses to support the price of wheat that land produces. You came here because the Emus are destroying what little is left, and someone in Canberra decided the solution was military. You came here because you said yes when they asked, and the money was real, and you are tired of watching crops flatten overnight. The Campion district stretches across the interior of Western Australia, in red soil and low scrub and silence. You will live in this silence for weeks. You will rise before dawn and drive out in a truck that shakes your teeth loose on ungraded tracks. You will set up positions at watering holes and wait. The emus will come. They always come. 20,000 of them migrating north after breeding season, following routes that predate European settlement by tens of thousands of years. They do not know about wheat. They do not know about farms or fences or the economics of the British Commonwealth in 1932. They know about water and grass and forward movement. They move because they have always moved. The farms are simply in the way. You will learn, before this is over, that an emu can absorb a bullet and keep moving. You will learn that they scatter into small groups the moment they sense a threat, making the kind of massed fire attack you trained for completely useless. You will learn that the land, the vast, flat, shimmering interior of Western Australia, is not your friend. Trucks brake on it, guns jam in its dust. Heat makes men slow and equipment unreliable. You will also learn something Meredith writes in his official report, something that will be quoted for decades afterward. He writes it with a straight face. He has no choice. It is simply what he observed. The emus, he writes, could face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. You were the machine guns. The emus were the tanks. And somewhere out in the red scrub of Western Australia, right now, in the stillness before this story begins, 20,000 of them are already moving toward you. This is quiet history at bedtime. If this is your kind of story, a subscribe means everything right now. Every detail in this story comes from the historical record. Just relax and feel free to let this play as you drift off to sleep. Now, let us begin. Your name is on a list posted outside the orderly room at Swanbourne Barracks, Perth, Western Australia. Third name from the top, Sergeant, Royal Australian Artillery. Age 38. Next of kin listed as your wife, whose name you do not think about when you are reading official documents, because reading official documents is a different part of your mind than the part that holds her face. The date is the 28th of October, 1932. You have been back in uniform for 4 days. You are not a soldier anymore, or you were not until 4 days ago. You are a farmer. That is what they made you when the war ended, a farmer. The soldier settlement scheme gave you 240 acres of crown land in the Campion district east of Perth, and a low-interest loan to work it, and a handshake and a government pamphlet describing the bright future of Western Australian wheat farming. That was 1920. You were 26 years old. You had never farmed anything in your life. Neither had most of the men standing next to you at the land allocation office. Men with the same hollow look behind the eyes. Men who had learned in the trenches that the future was something you did not count on. You learned to farm. It took 3 years before you stopped losing more than you made. It took 5 before the land started to feel like yours, before the red soil stopped being hostile and started being simply difficult, which is a different thing. By 1928, you had a working property. Modest, 180 acres under wheat, 60 in reserve, a small herd, a stone water tank that you built yourself from local limestone, a house with a corrugated iron roof that drummed in the rain and turned the interior into an oven from November through March. The corrugated iron roof has a way of marking every rain event for you, each drop a separate percussion, 100 of them together becoming something close to white noise, the sound of water you need enough to lie awake counting it. In the dry years, the roof is silent for months. You have learned to notice the silence. By 1927, you had paid off the smallest of the 3 loans. You made an entry in the farm ledger the night the last payment cleared. You did not celebrate, exactly. You poured 2 fingers of whiskey and drank them standing at the kitchen table, and then went to bed, because the next day's work began before dawn regardless. But you noticed it. You let yourself notice it. Then 1929 arrived. The collapse came from New York, but landed everywhere. The price of wheat in Western Australia fell from approximately 5 shillings per bushel to just over 2 shillings per bushel between 1929 and 1932. 2 shillings per bushel. Your cost of production, seed, labor, fuel for the tractor you are still paying off, runs to approximately 3 shillings per bushel. You have been selling wheat at a loss for 3 years. The government guaranteed price scheme that was supposed to protect farmers like you has not been funded adequately. The loan repayments on your land continue regardless. The bank has been patient in the way that banks are patient when they can afford to wait, because the land is still there, and the land holds its value better than the price of wheat. You are not unique. The Campion district is full of men in identical situations, Men who survived Gallipoli, or the Western Front, or Mesopotamia, who were given land as thanks and are now being ruined by economics no one in Canberra seems willing to address. The Returned Soldiers League has lodged formal complaints. Members of Parliament have raised the issue in the House. The response has been measured, sympathetic, and insufficient. The ledger entry for 1931 shows a loss of £43. For 1932, the number is not yet final, but the shape of it is clear. It will be worse. The emus arrived on top of all of this. They come every year. This is not new. The emu is a migratory animal, moving north after the breeding season in the southern autumn, following routes through the interior of Western Australia that were established long before there were farms here, long before there were Europeans here, long before there was a nation called Australia at all. A mature emu stands nearly 2 meters tall and weighs between 30 and 60 kilograms. They travel in groups that can swell, in peak migration years, to numbers in the tens of thousands. In 1932, the post-breeding migration is larger than usual. The rains have been good further south, which means the breeding season was successful, which means the numbers moving north are substantial. 20,000 is the figure that appears in the parliamentary petition filed by Campion district farmers in October of 1932. 20,000 emus moving through farms that are already failing, pushing through fences, eating wheat crops, fouling water sources, leaving the ground behind them stripped and churned. A single emu mob passing through a cultivated paddock can destroy a week of growth in a single night. The damage is not incidental. An emu eats approximately 1 to 1.5 kilograms of plant matter per day. Multiply that across a mob of several hundred and you understand the arithmetic of a ruined paddock by morning. You have seen it. You have stood at the edge of a paddock in the early morning and looked at what was there the evening before, and felt the particular flatness of a man who has run out of ways to be surprised by bad news. The emus also break fences. They push through rabbit-proof fencing with a persistence that can only be described as systematic. A broken fence in the Campion district means rabbits, and rabbits are their own separate catastrophe. But the emus break the fences first, and the fixing costs money, and the money is not there. The farmers have tried shooting emus themselves with rifles in small numbers on their own properties. The numbers do not respond to individual action. 20,000 is a number that laughs at a man with a rifle and 60 rounds in his pocket. The farmers petitioned the government. The government, in its wisdom, decided the appropriate response was military. Major G.P.W. Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery is the officer commanding this operation. He is a career soldier, methodical and professionally competent, with the kind of face that does not register surprise easily. He has been assigned 2 Lewis light machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. His operational unit consists of himself, 2 other soldiers, and you. You are the senior non-commissioned officer. You have been told this will take approximately 1 week. The press have been invited to observe. A cameraman from a Perth newspaper will be driving out separately to document the operation. In Canberra, it has been characterized as a practical demonstration of military utility in peacetime conditions. That characterization will not survive the week. The Lewis gun is a weapon you know well. You carried one on the Western Front. It is a light, air-cooled automatic weapon that fires from a flat, circular drum magazine. holding 97 rounds. At a cyclic rate of approximately 500 to 580 rounds per minute, a full drum empties in just over 10 seconds. The gun weighs just over 12 kilograms unloaded. It was designed to suppress enemy infantry at ranges up to 800 yards. It was designed to be fired from a stable position, a bipod, a sandbag, a fixed emplacement, by a trained gunner with a clear field of fire and a known target. It was not designed to be fired at birds from the back of a moving truck on an ungraded Western Australian dirt track. That detail will become relevant before the week is out. You have already thought about this. You thought about it at the barracks when they showed you the operational plan, the hand-drawn map of the Campion district with the main emu corridors marked in red pencil, the watering holes circled, the farm boundaries drawn in dotted lines. The plan envisaged massed fire engagements, large concentrations of emus brought to a stop at a bottleneck, a gate, a watering point, and engaged with sustained automatic fire at close range. Clean, efficient, the kind of operation that looks sensible on a map. The map does not show what an emu does when it hears a gunfire. The map does not show the Campion scrub, the mulga thickets, the uneven red ground, the 1,000 different directions a panicking animal can take in 10 seconds. The map is a simplification. Maps always are. You learned this in France, where the maps showed roads that had become craters and ridgelines that had been completely reshaped by shellfire, where the ground you were asked to cross bore no reliable relationship to the ground described in the briefing documents. You said nothing about this at the barracks. It was not your place to say it. Meredith seemed competent, and you had no basis for objecting beyond a general feeling that the plan assumed too much cooperation from the target. You are a sergeant. Your job is to execute, not to critique. And perhaps you are wrong. Perhaps the emus will cooperate. You board the train at Perth Station on the morning of the 29th of October. The platform smells of coal smoke and hot metal and the particular dryness of an Australian spring morning before the heat has fully arrived. Your kit is modest, a soldier's kit, not a farmer's. Uniform, rifle, personal equipment. The Lewis guns and the 40 ammunition boxes have been loaded into the goods wagon. You carry your own .303 Lee Enfield service rifle on a shoulder sling out of habit. The weight of it is familiar in a way that is neither comforting nor troubling. It is simply weight. It is simply familiar. Meredith is already in the compartment when you board. He nods. You sit across from him. A junior lance corporal you know only as Jock takes the window seat and almost immediately falls asleep against the glass, his head bouncing gently with the motion of the train. The third man, a driver, seconded from the transport section, is somewhere further back in the carriages with the equipment. The train moves out through the coastal suburbs of Perth, and then through Guildford, and then into the dry interior. The landscape changes within an hour. The green of the coast drops away. The soil color shifts from the dark loam of the coastal plain to the red-orange laterite of the inland plateau, the ancient rock breaking the surface in long, low ridges, the scrub taking over in every direction, mulga and mallee and the gray-green of saltbush running flat to the horizon. The sky is enormous here. You grew up in Victoria, where there are hills, where the horizon is interrupted. Western Australia does something different with the horizon. It simply does not end. Meredith reads a report across from you. It is the farmer's petition. The formal document submitted to the Minister of Defense, Sir George Pierce, describing the extent of the emu incursion and the economic damage sustained. You have already read it. It is a precise document, written in the flat, exhausted language of men who have stopped expecting sympathy and are simply recording facts. The petition describes trampled fence lines, fouled water troughs, flattened wheat crops. It describes the financial position of soldier settlement farms in language that is restrained and, for that reason, devastating. You take out the manifest and hold it on your knee. 2 Lewis guns, 10,000 rounds of .303 British ammunition. 40 boxes, 250 rounds per box. Spare drums, 6 of them, each capable of being loaded and fired in sequence once the first is empty. Cleaning kit. Field rations for 10 days, water for 4. The truck carries the rest. You count the boxes in your mind. 40 boxes, 10,000 rounds, against 20,000 emus. Even accounting for difficult conditions, moving targets, unfamiliar terrain, dust affecting the gun mechanisms, the arithmetic seems more than adequate. You have fought in 2 major campaigns. You understand the concept of ammunition expenditure per target under combat conditions. The ratios here should be comfortable. You fold the manifest. You have been wrong about arithmetic before. The train slows for the Meriden stop as the afternoon light begins to change. The red earth has turned almost orange in the low sun, and the scrub casts long shadows that make the flat land look briefly contoured, briefly dimensional. Through the smeared glass of the compartment window you can see the country running out flat in all directions from the railway line. The mulga scrub at the paddock edges, a distant corrugated iron roof catching the light. Your farm is 2 hours east of here. In another life, 2 weeks ago, you were out there working it. You were running fence checks in the morning and reviewing grain storage figures in the evening and trying to calculate whether the autumn rains would come early enough to plant on time. The farm does not stop because you are on this train. Your wife is managing it. She has managed difficult things before. The train rounds a long curve and begins to slow further. And there, through the window, in the failing afternoon light, at the edge of a dry paddock running parallel to the track, you see them. Not 20,000, 50 perhaps, 60. A loose congregation of large, dark shapes standing at the paddock's edge, their long necks raised, their small heads turned toward the sound of the approaching train. They are tall. You knew the measurements, nearly 2 meters at full height. But the reality of them, the scale of them standing against the flat red landscape in the late light, is different from the numbers in a government report. They are prehistoric looking, old, like something that has been here longer than the country has had a name. The train passes them at perhaps 40 meters. They do not run. They watch. Their heads track the movement of the train with a quality of attention that is calm and methodical, and entirely without alarm. They stand their ground. They assess. They remain. Meredith has not looked up from his report. Jock is still asleep against the glass. You watch the emus until the scrub closes over them and they are gone. You sit with the image for a moment. The stillness of them, the raised heads, the way they stood their ground against a moving train without concern. You take out the manifest again. 10,000 rounds, You fold it and put it away. The train pulls into Meriden with a long note on the steam whistle. The platform is nearly empty at this hour. A station master in a white shirt stands at the far end with a clipboard, watching the train arrive with the careful professional attention of a man who counts things for a living. You shoulder your kit. You pick up your rifle. The air on the platform smells of dust and dry grass and the particular emptiness of inland Australia at evening, a smell that is also, you realize, the smell of your own farm, the smell of your own land. 12 years of it worked into your understanding of place. The farm is 2 hours east. You could almost walk there from this platform. Instead, you follow Meredith toward the station exit where the truck is waiting, loaded and idling, its headlights already on in the dusk. The stars are coming out overhead. The Southern Cross is already visible, low and clear in the darkening sky to the southwest. The evening is warm. The scrub on the edge of town is starting to come alive with the sounds of the night. Frogs somewhere near a water tank, the distant call of a night bird, something moving in the mulga that stops when you stop and starts again when you move on. You climb into the truck. The driver turns northeast on the Meriden-Narrabeen road into the flat dark of the interior, toward the Campion district, toward the farms, toward 20,000 emus that do not know you are coming. The road is unsealed past the edge of town, red gravel that cracks and shifts under the wheels, the truck pitching and recovering over every corrugation in the surface. The headlights throw a narrow channel of pale light into the dark. Either side of that channel there is nothing but scrub and the suggestion of flat ground continuing. The bush here at night is not silent. There are things moving in it. Kangaroos freeze at the edge of the headlight reach and then bound sideways and vanish. Once something taller moves at the far edge of the beam and is gone before you can make it out properly. You do not mention it. Meredith rides in the cab with the driver. You are in the truck bed with Jock, sitting on an ammunition case with your back against the cab wall. The corrugations in the road travel up through the steel of the case and through your spine at an irregular rhythm that makes it impossible to think coherently. You have ridden in worse. The Somme had roads that would have broken this truck's axle in the first kilometer. You think about the farm. You think about the ledger entries. You think about the 40 boxes of ammunition stacked and roped behind you, and the 2 Lewis guns in their cases beside them, and the plan on the hand-drawn map, and the 50 emus standing at the paddock edge watching the train go past. Tomorrow the operation begins. You have 10,000 rounds of ammunition, 2 Lewis guns, and what you calculate to be a comfortable margin of error. The truck headlights cut a narrow channel in the dark. The stars overhead are very bright and very many. The Milky Way a broad pale smear across the sky from one horizon to the other. The kind of sky you only see when you are far enough from any town that the darkness is complete. You grew up in a place with hills. You farmed a place without them. You are still, after 12 years, not fully accustomed to what a sky looks like when the land does not interrupt it. The road runs straight and flat and long into the interior, and the only sounds are the engine and the tire noise, and the occasional crash of a pothole, and, somewhere beyond the headlight reach, the ongoing secret life of the scrub that does not stop for your arrival and does not acknowledge your purpose. and will continue long after tomorrow's operation is finished, one way or another. You do not sleep on the drive out. You watch the road. The camp is a flat patch of cleared ground beside a dirt track, 3 kilometers from the nearest farm, surrounded on 3 sides by mulga scrub. There is no shade except what the truck provides in the morning before the sun climbs past it. There is no running water. There is a corrugated iron water tank on a timber stand at the edge of the camp, half full, which the local farmer has told you is gravity-fed from a dam 2 paddocks over. You are to use it sparingly. You unload the truck in the early morning dark, working by lantern light. The ammunition boxes are heavy. Each one holds 250 rounds, brass-cased, 303 cartridges packed in cloth bandoliers of 5, and the boxes themselves are timber, reinforced at the corners with metal strapping. You carry them 2 at a time, stacking them against the scrub side of the camp in rows of 4. 40 boxes. It takes 4 trips each to move them. By the time the last box is stacked, the sky is beginning to lighten in the east, the darkness becoming dark blue, becoming gray, and the scrub coming slowly into silhouette around you. The Lewis guns come out of their cases last. You do this yourself. You unpack the first gun from its padded case, check the barrel, check the bipod feet, run a clean patch through the mechanism. The gun is in good condition. Someone at the barracks had maintained it properly. You assemble 6 drums and set them in a row beside the gun, checking each one for correct tension. A drum with a binding spring will jam at the worst moment. You have learned this. You check each drum twice. Meredith watches you work without comment. This is the kind of officer he is, not the kind who stands over your shoulder and narrates, but the kind who watches to confirm you know what you are doing and then leaves you to do it. You know what you are doing. The second gun is identical to the first. Same maintenance routine, same drum check. Jock assists with the second gun. He is younger, 23, 24, and competent in the mechanical way of men who have grown up around engines and tools. He does not need direction. You give him the drum tension check, and he runs it without being asked to explain what he is looking for. The camp comes together as the sky lightens. Meredith has a folding table and a canvas stool, and the operational map, which he spreads and anchors with ammunition boxes at the corners. The map shows the Campion district in the grid pattern of surveyed agricultural land. The farms laid out in rectangular blocks along the road network, the main tracks marked, the watering points circled. The Emu migration corridor runs roughly north-northwest through the center of the district. The main concentrations, based on the farmers' reports, are currently scattered across a 30-kilometer front. You drink tea from a billy can and study the map. The plan for today is reconnaissance. You will drive the main tracks through the district, speak with the farmers about recent emu movements, identify concentrations, and assess the terrain for firing positions. The actual operation, the engagement, begins tomorrow. Meredith has arranged for a representative from the local farmers group to accompany you as a guide. His name is Thomas Campbell, and he arrives at the camp at 7 in the morning in a battered utility truck with a cattle dog in the tray, driving fast across the corrugated track with the practiced carelessness of a man who has done it 1,000 times. Campbell is in his mid-40s, lean in the way of men who work outdoors in dry country, with the specific weathering around the eyes that comes from years of squinting into Australian sun. He gets out of his truck without ceremony and shakes Meredith's hand and then yours and then says, without preamble, that there are approximately 3,000 emus on his eastern boundary and another mob of similar size moving toward the Johnston farm to the north, and that he has lost 60 yards of boundary fence in the past week alone. You watch his face when he says this. It is the face of a man who has been repeating these facts to various people for some time and has stopped expecting the facts to produce an adequate response. You say, "We are here now." He looks at the Lewis guns. He says, "Good." The drive through the district takes most of the morning. Campbell leads in his utility. You follow in the army truck, Meredith riding in the cab and taking notes. The Campion district in 1932 is agricultural land in various states of development. Some properties well established with stone or timber farmhouses and properly fenced paddocks and the infrastructure of a working farm. Others barely cleared, the stumps still in the ground, the fences a single strand of wire, the houses no more than a tin shed with a lean-to kitchen. The soldier settlers built what they could with what they had. Some of them had farming backgrounds. Others, like you, learned by doing, which is the slower and more expensive education. The land itself is variable, the red sandy loam that holds moisture reasonably well on some blocks, the heavy clay soils on others that crack in dry seasons and flood in wet ones. The wheat growing on the better blocks looks reasonable. It is spring, the crop is up, the heads forming. On the poorer blocks, the crop is thin and pale, a marginal planting that a good season might save and a bad season will destroy. And through all of it, the evidence of the emus. You see it at the first farm you stop at. The boundary fence pushed flat over a 10-meter section, the wire bent and the posts pulled over at angles that suggest sustained pressure from a large number of heavy bodies moving in one direction. The ground on the other side of the fence is marked with the three-toed prints of emus, large, clear, close together, overlapping, moving north. The prints are fresh. Yesterday mornings, the farmer says, maybe 400 of them came through here before light. You look at the fence, you look at the prints. A mature emu weighs between 30 and 60 kilograms and stands nearly 2 meters tall. Its legs are thick, muscled, built for sustained running. An emu in open country can cover ground at 48 kilometers per hour and maintain that speed for significant distances. The feet are three-toed, powerful, with a forward-facing inner toe that carries a short, blunt claw used in defensive kicks. In the wild, the emu's primary predators have always been dingoes and wedge-tailed eagles. Against a dingo, the kick is a decisive weapon. Against a fence post, it is simply a matter of weight and persistence. 400 of them pushing through one section of wire fence. The fence does not stand. You note this. You have been thinking of the emus in aggregate, 20,000, a number, a target figure. Standing at this fence, looking at the prints in the red soil, you begin to think of them in individual terms as well. The size of each print, the depth of it in the soft ground, the distance between prints, nearly a meter of stride at a walking pace. These are large animals, individually large, with individual physical presence and individual physical capability. 20,000 of them is a different calculation than 20,000 rabbits. You get back in the truck. The second farm you visit belongs to a man named Foster, who is waiting at his gate when you arrive as though he has been waiting since before dawn. He is younger than Campbell, early 30s, one of the later soldier settlers, a man who took his land parcel in the mid-20s and has been working it ever since. His farm shows the marks of careful effort. The fences are straight, the paddocks cleared to the boundaries, the farmhouse modest but properly maintained. There is a vegetable garden beside the house, protected by wire netting. Inside the netting, the vegetables are undamaged. Outside, the ground is marked with emu prints up to the netting edge. Foster shows you his paddocks. The wheat crop on the north block. His best paddock, he says, the one he plants first every year, the one with the best soil, has been partially destroyed, not completely. 60% of it standing. The rest pushed flat, the heads eaten, the stalks broken. He shows you the line where the mob passed through, a clear boundary between intact crop and destruction, straight as a front. He does not speak while he shows you this. You walk the paddock edge with him and say nothing, because there is nothing useful to say that he has not already said to himself. You are not here to offer condolences. You are here to stop it happening again. Back at the gate, you ask him about the emus's movements. When do they come? From which direction? How long do they stay? He says they come from the south, always from the south, moving north. They come before dawn or in the late afternoon when the heat is off. They do not stay, they move through, following some internal map that does not include his farm as a destination, only as a corridor. They are not interested in the farm. The farm is a thing they pass through on the way to wherever north takes them. You think about this on the drive back to camp. The emus are not a siege, they are a flood. The difference matters tactically. A siege you can engage at fixed points. A flood moves around obstacles. The way to stop a flood is not to shoot the water, it is to build a wall, or to redirect the flow. The farmers know this. That is why the petition included a request for additional fencing assistance alongside the military request. The government chose the military option because it was faster and required less budget. You are faster than a fence. You are currently producing less result than a fence. This is day 1. You have not yet fired a shot. Back at camp by noon, you eat field rations and drink more tea and study the map. Meredith marks the locations Campbell and Foster described. The main mob, the 3,000-strong concentration on Campbell's eastern boundary, has been moving steadily north. Based on its speed over the last 3 days, it will reach the next line of farms before nightfall. If the operation is going to intercept it at maximum size, before it disperses into the farm paddocks and becomes impossible to engage as a unit, the engagement window is tomorrow morning. You spend the afternoon preparing. You disassemble both Lewis guns completely, clean every part, reassemble and test the feed mechanisms with empty drums. You are looking for anything that will cause a stoppage under rapid fire. A worn extractor, a rough feed lip on a drum, grit in the bolt carrier. The campion dust is fine and red and gets into everything. You find traces of it already in the second gun's mechanism, even though the weapon has not been fired since you arrived. You clean it out and oil the moving parts carefully, and make a note to check after every firing session. Jock asks you what you think tomorrow will be like. You tell him, disciplined fire, short bursts, wait for the mass to close before engaging. Don't waste the first drum on a running target at long range. Let them come to the water. Wait until the concentration is tight, then fire. He nods. You don't tell him what you were thinking on the drive back from Foster's farm. You don't tell him about the flood versus the siege. You drum check the ammunition one more time as the sun drops toward the scrub line and the shadows lengthen across the red ground. 40 boxes, 250 rounds per box. 6 loaded drums per gun. The mathematics of the operation still look reasonable on paper. Tomorrow we'll test whether they look reasonable on the ground. The evening comes in quickly, as it does in the interior. One moment the light is golden and long, the next it is gone, replaced by the blue-gray dusk that in this country lasts about 20 minutes before the dark is complete. You eat, you clean your rifle, you spread your bedroll on the truck bed. The camp is quiet. Meredith is writing at his folding table by lantern light, notes or reports or the kind of administrative documentation that career officers seem to generate automatically regardless of the operational situation. Jock is already asleep. The driver is somewhere in the dark, checking the truck's wheel bearings, a task he has been worrying about since Meriden. The night birds start up in the scrub. The sound is unfamiliar. Different species than you hear on your own farm, or the same species sounding different in this particular country. A mopoke somewhere to the south, the two-note call steady and regular. Something else further away, a sound between a bark and a whistle that you cannot identify. You lie on your back in the truck bed and look at the stars. Tomorrow you will fire a Lewis gun at 20,000 emus. You have done stranger things. You have done things you cannot tell anyone about. Things from the Western Front that exist in a part of your memory that you have learned to leave alone. By comparison, this operation is what? Unusual, logistically questionable, probably fine. You close your eyes. The mopoke continues its two-note call in the dark. In the scrub to the north, 3,000 emus are resting or moving or doing whatever emus do in the hour before midnight in the Campion district. They will be at the water by morning. You will be there too. You sleep. The alarm is a watch, your own watch, wound every evening at the same time, and it wakes you at 4:30, before the sky has begun to lighten. Before the birds have started, in the deepest part of the pre-dawn dark. You get up without ceremony. You have been waking before dawn for 12 years on the farm, and the mechanism is automatic now, a body habit that does not require the watch but respects it anyway. You pull on your uniform in the dark. You boil water for tea. You carry the first Lewis gun to the truck and mount it on the improvised bracket that the driver rigged over the cab roof, a steel plate bolted to the roof rack with a traverse fitting that allows the gun to swing approximately 90 degrees. It is not ideal, it is functional. Meredith appears from the dark, fully dressed and drinking from his own billy. He checks his notes. He says, "The main concentration was tracked to the Campbell Farms eastern dam yesterday evening. The plan is to approach from the south, downwind, and engage when the mob is concentrated at the water." You nod. Jock loads the second gun into the truck bed and sits behind it on an ammunition case, the same way you rode out last night. He looks alert. Young men at 0-30 can be alert in a way that older men manage only through discipline. You mount up. The truck moves out in the dark without headlights once you clear the camp, rolling slowly down the track by the gray light that is not quite darkness, and not quite dawn, the kind of light that makes shapes out of the scrub but gives them no color. The track is marked with flagging tape at the key turns, placed yesterday during the reconnaissance. You follow the tape north. The dam appears first as a smell, water and mud and the particular organic richness of a standing body of water in dry country, a smell that carries far in still air. Then, as a sound, you hear the emus before you see them, a low booming, barely audible, felt as much as heard. And then, as the truck crests a low rise and the dam comes into view, you see them. 3,000 is a number. The reality of 3,000 emus at a dam in the early morning light is something that the number does not prepare you for. They cover the ground from the dam's edge to the scrub line, a mass of large, dark bodies close together, moving constantly in the slow shifting way of a large crowd. The individual animals turning and pressing, and the whole mass breathing and vocalizing at a frequency you feel in your chest. The smell of them reaches you across 200 meters. They have not heard the truck yet. The wind is correct. You and Meredith and Jock sit in the truck on the rise and look at this for a moment. Meredith says, advance to 100 meters, then open fire. You drive forward. At 150 meters, the leading edge of the mob detects you. You see it happen. The front animals raise their heads simultaneously, a ripple of attention passing back through the crowd in a wave, heads coming up across the entire 3,000-strong mass in a sequence that takes perhaps 2 seconds. The booming stops. At 100 meters, Meredith calls, fire. You open the Lewis gun. The gun fires at 520 rounds per minute in the conditions. The sound of it in the open air of the Campion district at dawn is enormous. The harsh mechanical clatter of the bolt cycling 60 times per second. The drum feeding smoothly. You traverse left to right across the mass, short bursts, 3 to 5 rounds each, leading moving targets the way you were trained. The emus scatter. Not in a single direction, in every direction simultaneously. In 3 seconds, the mass that was 3,000 animals standing close together at a dam has become 3,000 animals moving at full speed in a rough circle outward from the dam, the fastest ones already at the scrub edge, the whole group fragmenting into dozens of smaller groups that thread through the mulga and disappear into the cover. You traverse and fire, and the rounds are going into moving targets at distances that are increasing by the second, 50 meters, 70 meters, and the mulga is absorbing the fleeing animals faster than you can track them. You empty the first drum. You reach for the second. You look at the dam. It is empty. In less than 45 seconds, 3,000 emus have become 0 emus. The ground is covered in tracks. The water surface is turbulent with the wake of animals that waded through it to the other side. A small number of birds are down. You count 7, 8 at the dam edge and in the mud. Further out in the scrub, there may be more. Wounded animals move into cover. You know from experience that a wounded animal in scrub can travel further than you expect before it stops. 7 or 8 confirmed at the dam. From a drum and a half, approximately 140 rounds against 3,000 animals at close range. Meredith is writing in his notebook. Jock says nothing. You lower the gun and look at where the emus were and are not. This is not how you expected it to go. You have been in massed infantry engagements. You have stood at a Lewis gun position and fired into advancing ranks. Ranks do not scatter like this. Ranks have a direction, a momentum, a coherent mass that can be engaged on a single axis. Emus do not have ranks. Emus have the collective alarm response of a species that has been evading predators for millions of years. The instant fragmentation, the dispersal in all directions, the conversion from a single large target into hundreds of small targets moving away from you faster than the gun can track. You have just been outmaneuvered by birds. You sit with this for a moment. Then you reload and drive to the next position because the dam is empty now and the emus are in the scrub, and the scrub is the next problem. The scrub is not your friend. The mulga and mallee that covers the Campion district is dense enough to stop a vehicle and open enough for an emu to pass through at full speed. You cannot drive into it. You cannot see through it. The individual mobs that scattered from the dam have now dispersed into the scrub in groups of 20, 30, 50 animals, threading between the trees, following their own internal compass north, and the Lewis gun mounted on the truck roof cannot traverse fast enough to engage a target that appears between two trees for half a second and then is gone. You spend the rest of the morning moving between positions on the track network, trying to intercept groups of emus at fence gates or open paddock crossings. You fire several times. You hit animals. Some go down immediately. Others, and this is the detail you will think about for the rest of the campaign, absorb the impact and continue running. A .303 round fired from a Lewis gun delivers significant kinetic energy to the target. You know this. You have seen what .303 ammunition does to a human body at combat range. The round should be decisive. The emu is not small, 60 kilograms, 2 meters of height, but it is not armored. It should go down. Some of them do not go down. Meredith stops one such animal eventually, on foot, at close range, and examines it. He looks at the bullet entry point. He looks at the animal's internal structure. He writes something in his notebook. He does not share what he has written, but you see his face when he stands up, and it is the face of a man who has just been given information that complicates his operational planning significantly. By midday, you have fired approximately 250 rounds. You count the confirmed dead animals, 31, possibly more in the scrub, wounded. 31 from 250 rounds against a target population of 3,000 at the opening engagement, now dispersed across 30 kilometers of mulga scrub. You return to camp. You sit down. You drink tea. You look at the ammunition stack. 39 boxes. You pick up the manifest from your breast pocket and look at the number 1 more time. Not because it has changed, because tomorrow you need to think differently about how to spend what remains. You put the manifest away. Tomorrow you will try again. The morning of the 4th of November begins the same way the previous mornings have begun. 4:30 wake, tea, gun check, drive out in the dark following the flagging tape on the track north. The routine has established itself with the speed that routines establish themselves in field conditions, where repetition is a form of control over an environment that offers very little else to control. You have been in the Campion district for 5 days. In 5 days, you have fired approximately 800 rounds and confirmed fewer than 50 kills. The mathematics of this are not something you discuss out loud. Meredith records the figures in his operational log without comment. You read them over his shoulder one evening and then do not read them again because the numbers do not improve by being examined repeatedly. The problem is not the gun. The Lewis gun is functioning correctly. You have maintained it carefully, cleared 3 minor stoppages caused by dust in the bolt mechanism, replaced 1 drum spring that showed signs of fatigue. The gun fires when you ask it to fire. The problem is what happens after the gun fires. The problem is the Emus. You have learned things about Emus in 5 days that are not in any document you were given before this operation. You have learned them by watching, by missing, by firing, and then driving to where the shot should have landed and finding the ground empty. You have learned them the way you learned things in France, not from briefings but from contact with the actual situation, which is always different from the briefed situation in ways that matter. The first thing you have learned is that emus do not flock in the sense that makes machine gun fire effective. A flock, in the military sense, is a massed target, bodies close together, moving in one direction, offering a coherent front to sustained fire. Emus do not do this under pressure. The moment the gun opens, the mass detonates outward. You have seen it happen 4 times now, at 4 different watering points, in 4 different configurations of terrain, and it is the same every time. The dispersal is instant and total. Within 30 seconds of the first shot, there is no mass target. There are hundreds of individual targets moving fast in 100 different directions, most of them already at or beyond effective range. The second thing you have learned is what Meredith recorded in his notebook on the second day and has since mentioned twice in his nightly situation reports. An emu is not a target in the way that infantry are targets. The anatomy of the bird distributes the vital organs in a configuration that makes a non-fatal hit more likely than a fatal one at any angle except directly ahead. The heart sits low in the chest, protected by the keel of the breastbone and the layered mass of pectoral muscle. The lungs are positioned further back than you would expect from the external shape of the bird. A round that enters the body from the side, which is the most common angle in a lateral traverse engagement, may pass through without striking either organ. Meredith has described this to the liaison officer in Perth by telephone. The liaison officer has reported it to the Department of Defense in Canberra. Canberra has not responded with any new operational guidance. You have also learned, and this is the detail that sits with you most persistently, that an emu can carry a significant wound and continue moving for a long time. You saw this on the second day, an animal that had been hit by at least 2 rounds, the feathers on its left flank darkened with blood, moving north at a walking pace through the scrub. It was not fast. It was not going to survive, but it was moving. It was still moving in a direction it had chosen, still oriented north, still following whatever internal instructions said north is where you go. You shot it at close range to end it. You thought about it that evening and have thought about it since. The 5th morning's engagement is at a gate in Campbell's northern boundary fence, where the track crosses from one paddock to the next, and the emus have been using the gate opening as a transit point. Campbell identified it 2 days ago and suggested an ambush there. 2 men with the gun positioned at the track edge, downwind, waiting for the morning movement to funnel through the gap. The ambush works better than the dam approaches. The gate forces the animals into a narrower front. Instead of the full outward scatter you have seen at open water, the ones coming through the gate are channeled by the fence and the scrub on either side. You fire 2 drums in sequence, 194 rounds, traversing through the gap at perhaps 60 meters range. 11 dead at the gate, 5 more found in the paddock beyond, animals that made it through and then collapsed, 16 confirmed. 194 rounds for 16 animals. You stand at the gate in the morning heat and look at the numbers in Meredith's log and think about the 40 boxes you started with and the 37 you have left and the 20,000 emus that are somewhere in the 30 kilometers of scrub to your north, and you do the arithmetic one more time. The gate tactic is the most effective thing you have tried. The bottleneck works. The fence forces the mass into a narrower front. The gun can cover the gap at close range. The dispersal is slowed by the physical constraint of the opening. If you had 40 gate positions across the district, manned and armed, you could do real damage to the migration. You have 1 gun, you have 1 truck, you have 1 gate at a time. You mention this to Meredith in the evening. He writes it in the log. He says, "Noted." The practical limit of the operation has been visible since the 2nd day, but the gate engagement makes it explicit. You are 4 men with 2 guns in a district 30 kilometers across, against an animal population that disperses faster than you can reposition. You are not losing because the guns don't work. You are not losing because the men aren't skilled. You are losing because the scale of the problem requires a different kind of solution. Not a concentrated strike force, but a distributed barrier, a fence. Several thousand kilometers of fence. The fence the farmers asked for in their petition, alongside the military request. The government gave them you instead. You do not share the result of this arithmetic with anyone. The 5th evening the rain comes. It arrives from the southwest in the late afternoon, the sky darkening from the horizon up, the wind changing direction and bringing with it the smell of wet dust. That means rain is genuinely coming rather than threatening. You have lived in this country long enough to know the difference between a sky that means rain and a sky that is performing rain. This sky means it. The rain arrives at approximately 5 in the evening, and within an hour has turned the red dirt tracks of the Campion district into red mud. The truck, which has been reliable on the dry corrugated surfaces, is a different machine on the mud. The rear wheels spin on the clay substrate beneath the surface soil. You push the truck out of 2 bogging incidents on the track back to camp, your boots going into the mud to the ankle, your hands on the rear bumper, heaving with the driver while Jock steers. By the time you reach camp, it is dark and wet, and you are covered in red clay to the elbow. You clean the guns by lantern light under the canvas fly, because the guns must be cleaned regardless of the conditions. The mud has got into the Lewis gun mechanism again, less than the dust does, but more insidiously, the clay particles smaller and more penetrating. You disassemble completely, clean, oil, reassemble. Meredith is at his table under the fly, writing. He writes for longer than usual tonight. You can hear the rain on the canvas overhead and the occasional sound of water finding a path through a seam in the fly and hitting the table. Meredith moves his papers without interrupting his writing. In the morning the rain is still coming. Lighter now, but steady. The sky uniformly gray. The tracks impassable. You drink tea and wait and listen to the rain on the fly. Meredith receives a message from Perth by the radio the driver has been maintaining. The message is from the Department of Defense. It informs him that due to operational conditions and public relations concerns that have emerged in the Perth and Sydney press, the operation is to be suspended pending review. He reads the message twice. He puts it face down on the table. You ask, how long? He says, indefinite. You sit with this. The press coverage has been running for several days. You have seen the newspapers when Campbell brought them out from Meriden, the Perth papers and one copy of a Sydney paper, several days old. The coverage is not sympathetic. The headlines are not written in the tone of military operations. They are written in the tone of comedy. One headline reads, Army machine guns fail against bird menace. Another refers to the operation as a campaign against the Australian wildlife. A columnist in the Sydney paper has written a piece suggesting that the emu has demonstrated qualities of leadership and tactical discipline that compare favorably to certain infantry commands he could name. You read this column twice. You do not find it funny. There is a particular quality to being mocked for something that was genuinely difficult. The men writing these columns were not there. They did not drive out in the dark on ungraded tracks to position a gun at a watering point before dawn. They did not watch 3,000 animals scatter in 45 seconds and try to understand what tactical principle had just been defeated. They did not stand in red dust with an empty drum and count the animals on the ground and do the arithmetic. They read the numbers in a government press release, and they found the numbers absurd, and they wrote columns, and the columns are not wrong. The numbers are absurd. That is the honest assessment, but the absurdity was not a failure of effort. You fold the newspaper and put it in the truck bed, and do not pick it up again. The ornithological community, you will later learn, has weighed in with a more measured response. A note in the Journal of an English Ornithological Society remarks, apparently without irony, that the emu has demonstrated a remarkable capacity to absorb punishment and maintain directional movement under fire, a quality the author attributes to the physiology and social structure of the species. The author does not use the word invulnerable. Meredith will use that word in his official report, but the ornithologists are, in their careful scientific way, saying something similar. You find this somehow more tolerable than the newspaper columns. The ornithologists are paying attention to the correct thing. The emu is genuinely difficult. That difficulty deserves to be understood on its own terms, not laughed at. The farmers, whose farms you have been trying to protect, do not find it funny either. Campbell came to the camp 2 days ago and sat with Meredith for an hour, going over the operation's results, the confirmed kill numbers, the ammunition expenditure, the areas still actively being damaged. His face during this conversation was the face of a man computing whether what he is receiving is better than nothing, and arriving at an uncertain answer. But the newspapers are not wrong, exactly. That is the uncomfortable truth underneath the comedy. The results are what they are. Over 2,000 rounds fired, fewer than 250 confirmed kills. The emu population of the Campion district essentially undisturbed and continuing to move north through the district's farms. The operation has not achieved its objective. The press coverage reflects this accurately, even if the tone is contemptuous rather than analytical. You pack the camp in the rain. The guns go back into their padded cases. The ammunition boxes, 37 of them, roughly 9,250 rounds remaining, are loaded back into the truck. The folding table comes down. The canvas fly comes down. The stacked kit goes up. You have packed a camp under bad conditions before. You do this quickly and without ceremony. The drive back to Meriden takes most of the day because of the track conditions. You ride in the truck bed under a canvas tarpaulin, sitting on the ammunition cases, watching the red mud move past on either side. The sky is gray and low, and the scrub is wet, and the whole landscape looks different in the rain. The red soil nearly orange against the gray sky, the mulga darker, the air holding the smell of wet earth and eucalyptus oil released by the rain hitting the leaves. Your farm gets this smell too, in a good rain. You have stood at the kitchen door in the early morning, after a night's rain, and breathed that smell, and felt something that is not quite hope, but is adjacent to it, the acknowledgement that the land needs this, that the crop needs this, that the next few weeks are possible because this happened. Today the smell is just the smell. You reach Meriden in the late afternoon, load the equipment onto the train, ride back to Perth. At Swanbourne Barracks you are debriefed by a lieutenant colonel who asks careful questions and writes careful answers in a careful notebook and thanks you for your service. The debriefing takes 40 minutes. It covers the operational results, the confirmed kill numbers, the ammunition expenditure, the tactical challenges of the terrain, and the target behavior. It does not cover what it felt like to fire a machine gun at a dam full of birds and watch the dam empty in 45 seconds. That is not the kind of information the debriefing is designed to capture. The lieutenant colonel is not hostile or dismissive. He is a professional conducting a process. He asks about the Lewis gun performance under field conditions, about the terrain's effect on vehicle movement, about the visibility and range conditions at the main engagement sites. He does not ask whether you think the operation should continue. That question has already been answered at a level above his. You sign the debriefing form. The official figures at the time of suspension, as entered in Meredith's operational log and reported to the Department of Defense, approximately 2,350 rounds expended over 7 operational days, approximately 244 confirmed emu kills. The per-round efficiency works out to approximately 1 kill per 10 rounds. For a machine gun operation against a massed target, this is poor. Against scattered individual targets moving at speed through dense scrub, it is perhaps less poor than it sounds. Meredith makes this argument in his written report. It does not receive a sympathetic reading in Canberra. The confirmed kill figure is disputed by some of the farmers, who believe the actual total, including animals that crawled into the scrub and died, is higher. You think they are probably right. A wounded emu that makes it into cover is not in the confirmed count. There are wounded emus in the Campion scrub right now, working their way through the mulga on whatever time they have left. You know this because you put rounds into animals you watched reach the scrub line. Some of those rounds were fatal. Some were not. There is no way to know the proportions. You are given 2 days leave. You go home. The farm is the same as you left it. Your wife has kept the work going, the routine tasks, the stock check, the water tank level, the record keeping. She has done this before, during the years when seasonal work took you off the property for weeks at a time. She is competent in the way of women who have no choice but to be competent, and she does not make a point of it, which is its own kind of competence. She asks how it went. You say, the operation has been suspended. She waits. You say it's complicated. She puts the kettle on. The kitchen is unchanged. The same oilcloth on the table. The same crack in the plaster above the window that you have been meaning to repair for 2 years. The same smell of the house. Iron and wood and flour and the faint lanolin smell of the wool blankets that never entirely leaves a farmhouse. You have been away for 12 days. 12 days in the Campion district, which is 60 kilometers east of here, which is your own country, your own land type, your own latitude. You have been away 12 days, and the house feels like something you are returning to after a much longer absence. The 2 days leave passes in the way that leave passes when the thing you are returning to is your own failing farm, not restfully, but with the particular grinding purposefulness of a man who has a list and not enough time. You repair a section of fence on the south boundary, a 30-meter run that has been losing tension for weeks. You check the grain storage, the wheat from last year's harvest in the corrugated iron shed, the levels marked on the wall with chalk. You service the tractor, which has developed a noise in the gearbox that you do not have the money to fix properly, but which you can manage with adjusted technique. In the evenings, you sit at the kitchen table with the ledger. The figures for 1932 are taking shape. The harvest will be modest. The crop is reasonable, better than last year, but the price projections are not good. The guaranteed price scheme that the government operates pays approximately 4 shillings and 3 pence per bushel for wheat under certain quality grades. Your wheat meets the grade at current projected yields on 170 acres under crop. You are looking at an income that will cover the loan repayments with approximately £11 left over for all other operating costs. £11. You close the ledger. You sit at the kitchen table in your own house, on your own farm, and drink tea from your own cup, and look out through the kitchen window at the paddock that has the repaired fence on the northern boundary. A fence you repaired yourself in August. 3 new posts and 100 meters of new wire after the last emu incursion broke it. The fence is still standing. The paddock behind it has a reasonable crop. The crop looks like it might make something this year, if the spring rains hold, if the price recovers even marginally, if nothing else goes wrong. Through the kitchen window, at the far edge of the north paddock, just visible against the scrub line, you can see 3 emus standing in the late afternoon light. They are not moving, they are watching. You drink your tea. You do not go for the rifle. There are 3 of them. You have a .303 on the wall rack and 60 rounds in the tin box in the hall cupboard. 3 emus at 200 meters. You could hit all 3 from the veranda if the light held. It would not make any difference. 3 emus is not 20,000 emus. 3 emus is 3 emus. The broader migration is still moving. You know this because Campbell telephoned the day after you arrived home. The telephone line to Meriden connects at the exchange, and from there to the farms on the party line that serves the district, a system of 2 longs and a short that means the call is for your number specifically. Campbell said the mob that dispersed from the dam engagement has been reforming further north, moving through the Johnston and Barker properties. Two more fence breaks in the past week on the Johnston boundary. The Barker wheat crop, 40 acres of it, his best paddock, has been pushed flat overnight. You listen to this and think about the 11 pounds in the ledger projection and the 37 boxes of ammunition sitting in the Swanbourne Barracks stores, waiting. You watch the three emus at the paddock edge until the light fades and they move back into the scrub. 2 days later, a message arrives from the Department of Defense. The operation is to be recommenced. The farmers have re-petitioned. Campbell and Foster and 11 other soldier settlers from the Campion district have filed a formal renewed request citing ongoing and increasing crop damage and the inadequacy of the suspended operations results as evidence that the problem requires continued military response. The petition has been reported in the Perth papers and has generated a different kind of coverage. Not comedy this time, but the flat, angry coverage of men who are losing their farms and need the public to understand this. The Minister of Defense, Sir George Pearce, who has been referred to in the press as the Minister for the Emu War, a nickname he appears to be ignoring with the practiced dignity of a politician who has endured worse, has authorized the continuation of operations. Meredith is to return to the Campion district with the same equipment and a modified operational approach. You are on the list. Third name from the top. You read the message at the kitchen table. Through the window, the north paddock is empty. No Emus this morning, the scrub line clear and quiet in the early light. You fold the message. You go to the hall cupboard and take down your kit. The second time you drive the Merredin-Narembin road, it is different from the first. The difference is not in the road or the country or the season, which has advanced only 2 weeks since the first departure. The difference is in what you know now that you did not know then. You know what the Campion scrub looks like when 3,000 emus move through it at speed. You know what the Lewis gun sounds like in the open air at dawn, and what the silence after the shooting sounds like, and how long it takes before the birds come back. You know the smell of the camp in the morning, and the weight of the ammunition boxes, and the way the red dust gets into the gun mechanism, and what that costs you in efficiency and time. The second time is not the same as the first time. The country looks the same from the train window, the same red laterite, the same gray-green scrub, the same enormous sky running to the same flat horizon in every direction. But the way you look at it is different. In October, you looked at this country as terrain to be assessed for military utility, fields of fire, approach routes, vehicle accessibility. You are still looking at it that way. But now you are also looking at it as the emus look at it, or as close to that as a man can get who is not an emu. You are looking for the water. You are looking for the natural corridors through the scrub, the places where the mulga thins and allows movement, the dry creek lines that make natural paths, the fence gaps and gate crossings where concentrated movement is forced through a single point. You are looking for the places where the country makes a constraint, because constraint is the only thing that has worked. The date is the 13th of November, 1932. The suspension lasted 5 days. In those 5 days, the debate in the press did not quieten. If anything, it intensified, the renewed farmers' petition generating a second wave of coverage that was somewhat less contemptuous and somewhat more interested in the underlying situation. Several Perth newspapers ran pieces on the soldier-settler scheme, on the economics of wheat farming under the guaranteed price, on the condition of the Campion district properties, These pieces are more serious than the Emu comedy columns. They are less widely read. The return to the district is with the same personnel, Meredith, you, Jock, the driver, and the same equipment. The ammunition boxes are 37 in number, the same count as at suspension, 9,250 rounds. 2 Lewis guns, 1 truck. The modified operational approach that Meredith described in the recommencement orders is, in practical terms, straightforward. Abandon the massed engagement strategy at open water, which has consistently failed due to dispersal, and move to an intercepting ambush approach at natural bottlenecks and funneling points across the district. This is the same conclusion you reached at the gate on the 5th day of the first campaign. It is now official operational doctrine. Campbell meets you at the Meriden railway station again, in the same utility truck with the same cattle dog. He looks like a man who has not slept well in 2 weeks, which he probably has not. He says the situation has worsened during the suspension. 3 additional fence breaks on the northern properties. 1 paddock of wheat completely destroyed on the Barker farm. The Johnston waterhole so churned up by emu traffic that it will need to be cleaned before it is usable for stock again. He gives you this information in the flat, factual manner you have come to associate with him. A man who has learned that describing his losses with emotion produces no different result than describing them without it, so he describes them without it. You drive out to the district. The first task of the recommenced operation is to survey the current emu positions, which have shifted during the suspension. The mobs that dispersed from the dam engagement in the first campaign have been moving and regrouping. Based on Campbell's tracking, he has been following the main mob's movement on his daily farm rounds, marking positions on his own map. The largest concentration is now in the northern part of the district, approximately 15 kilometers north of the original engagement site. It has been joined by additional animals moving down from the northwest, drawn by the same seasonal compulsion that drives the whole migration. The total number in the northern concentration, Campbell estimates, is between 2,000 and 4,000. He has not counted them. He has seen them from a distance at the edge of his northernmost paddock, and his estimate is based on that observation. 2,000 to 4,000, the same order of magnitude as before. You set up the camp in the same location. The flat patch beside the track, the half-full water tank, the corrugated iron stand. The camp comes together faster the second time. You know where everything goes, you know the order of operations, you do not waste time orienting. The gun check that evening is the same routine as before, but faster. Your hands know the Lewis gun now in the way that hands know a tool used repeatedly, not having to think about each step, the procedure running on its own, the mind free to notice anomalies rather than track the sequence. You find one. A small burr on the feed lip of the third drum, raised metal from what looks like a manufacturing defect that has been present since the start but has not caused a problem yet. You file it smooth with the small metal file in the cleaning kit. The drum feeds cleanly after. You set the drums in their row. Jock watches you work. He is different from the first campaign, less eager, more settled. The quality of attention a young man brings to a situation changes once he has been in it. He arrived the first time with the alertness of anticipation. He is here now with the steadier attention of a man who knows what to expect and has decided how he feels about it. You have watched this happen to men before in France. The second time is always different. Not necessarily worse, just informed. The next morning, you try the modified tactic for the first time. The target is a fence line with a natural gate at a track crossing, a different gate from the one you used successfully on the 5th day of the first campaign, 3 kilometers further north, identified by Campbell as a main transit point. The approach is from the east, downwind, the truck moving slowly with the engine at low revs along a parallel track before cutting across to the gate position. You reach the gate position at first light, before the main movement begins, and you wait. Waiting is a skill that the Western Front taught thoroughly. You know how to be still in a position for extended periods, how to manage the discomfort of sustained stillness, the pins and needles in the legs, the ache in the back, the tendency of the mind to generate noise when the body is not moving. You manage this. You breathe. You watch the scrub to the south, where the emus will come from if Campbell's tracking is correct. The landscape in the early morning before the heat arrives is a different landscape than the one you operate in at midday. The air is cool enough to notice, cool and completely still. The eucalyptus smells strong, the light coming in low from the east and catching the dew on the mulga leaves, making the gray-green scrub briefly silver. There are birds you cannot see calling from the scrub on all sides, wrens, honey-eaters, the harsh call of a crow somewhere north of the gate. A small lizard crosses the track 10 meters ahead of you and stops in a patch of sun and does not move again. This country was here before the farms. It will be here after them. You have 12 years of farming experience that tells you the land does not care about your plans for it. It accepts what you do on it, registers the change, and then slowly works to undo it. The fences rust, the cleared stumps send up new shoots, the red soil blows and shifts in the dry years and floods in the wet ones. You are a temporary condition on a landscape that operates on a different time scale. The emus are also temporary. They move through, they do not stay. Only the land stays. The wait is 40 minutes. Then the sound begins, the low booming that you now recognize as a large group of emus in motion. The sub-bass frequency carried on still air, felt more than heard at range. You signal to Jock. He settles behind the second gun. You confirm the wind direction with a strip of cloth tied to the gun bipod, still correct, from the south, carrying your scent away from the approach path. The first animals appear at the scrub edge 200 meters south of the gate. They emerge in ones and twos, the leading edge of the mob, the animals that travel at the front of the group. They walk steadily north. Behind them, the scrub continues to produce animals, a continuous emergence, ones and twos becoming tens and twenties, the ground between the scrub line and the gate filling with moving bodies. At 100 meters, the mob is dense, close-packed animals moving at a steady walking pace toward the gate, the natural bottleneck compressing them from their scattered distribution in the scrub into a tighter mass. You let them come. 50 meters. The sound of their feet on the dry ground is audible now, a soft, rapid percussion, hundreds of three-toed feet on red soil, overlapping into a continuous shuffling rush. The smell of them is strong. The leading animals are at the gate. You open fire. The engagement lasts approximately 90 seconds. You fire one full drum, swap, fire half of the second. Jock fires most of a drum from the second gun. The animals that were not in the immediate gate area scatter. The dispersal response is faster than you can track, but the fence on either side of the gate has held the central mass together long enough for the initial fire to do real damage. Animals are going down at the gate and in the open ground leading to it, not running into cover but falling. When the firing stops, the gate area is still. You walk the ground. 19 at the gate and in the immediate approach. 4 more in the open paddock on the far side. 23 confirmed from approximately 160 rounds. This is the best result the second campaign has produced so far. You mark the positions on Meredith's map. He writes in the log, the number 23 from 160 rounds is 1 kill per approximately 7 rounds. This is still not good by any conventional military accounting, but it is better. The tactic works better than what preceded it, and in the context of the previous week's results, better is something. You return to the gate 3 more times over the following days, rotating between different bottleneck positions across the district. The results vary. At one position, a narrow track crossing through dense scrub on the Johnston property's western boundary. The approach is too confined for the truck to maneuver effectively, and by the time you are in position, the leading emus have already detected you. The engagement there produces 8 kills from 2 drums, poor. At another position, a farm lane between 2 long paddocks where the fence lines channel the movement for nearly a kilometer before the crossing. The approach works, and the engagement produces 27 from 2 drums. The numbers accumulate. Meredith updates the operational log each evening. You read the running total without being asked to. It is your habit, the same habit that makes you check the drum tension twice and watch the wind direction before settling into position. The total is a resource like ammunition. You need to know how much you have and how fast you are spending it. By the 6th day of the second campaign, the confirmed kill total for the entire operation, first and second campaigns combined, stands at approximately 340. The ammunition expenditure stands at approximately 3,100 rounds. You are averaging less than 1 confirmed kill per 10 rounds across the full operation. The emu population of the Campion district is not measurably reduced. This is the honest assessment, and you make it honestly when Meredith asks for your tactical evaluation on the 6th evening. The mobs are the same size as at the start of the first campaign. The migration is continuing on its schedule. The damage to farms is continuing. You have killed 340 individual animals from a population that the original estimate placed at 20,000. That is approximately 1.7% of the estimated total. Meredith writes this in the log. He does not add a comment. You think about the petition that began this operation. The farmers asked for fencing assistance and military assistance. The fencing request was for an extension of the rabbit-proof fence network, a government infrastructure program that has been operating in Western Australia since 1901, 3 separate fence lines running for a combined total of approximately 3,000 kilometers across the western interior, designed to halt the eastward spread of the rabbit population. The fence works. It is not perfect. Rabbits find gaps, burrow under, push through, but it represents a sustained physical barrier across the landscape, maintained and patrolled, that has demonstrably slowed the rabbit's expansion. A similar approach applied to the emu migration corridors would be expensive. It would require tens of kilometers of new fencing across multiple properties. It would require government funding that the Department of Agriculture has not committed. The military option was cheaper in the short term. You are here. The farms are still being damaged. You hold this thought and set it aside because it is not actionable. You are a sergeant. Your job is not to evaluate the government's fencing policy. Your job is to make the Lewis gun work as effectively as possible in the conditions available, and to do that tomorrow and the day after until the ammunition is exhausted or the orders change. You have always been good at separating what is your job from what is not your job. The Western Front required this as a basic survival skill. A man who spent his attention on the policy decisions that put him in a particular trench at a particular time, instead of on the maintenance of his equipment and the welfare of the men beside him, was a man whose attention was in the wrong place. Your attention is in the right place. You write your own notes in the small notebook you keep in your kit, not official reports, just observations. The gate tactic, the dispersal speed, the viable range at which the gun can make a clean kill versus a wounding shot, the time between alarm detection and full dispersal. You will not submit these notes to anyone. They are for yourself. They are the record of what you learned. On the 8th day of the second campaign, you try the truck-mounted gun in open country for the first time since the early failures in the first campaign. The idea is to pursue a mob that has been sighted in open paddock ground on the Campbell property's far eastern boundary. Open ground, good visibility, few large obstacles. The mob is approximately 200 animals, a smaller group that has split from the main northern concentration and is moving east. On open ground, with good visibility, the mobility of the truck might compensate for the stability problems that made vehicle-mounted fire impractical in the denser terrain. The truck moves at approximately 30 kilometers per hour across the open paddock, parallel to the moving mob. The mob is running. They detected the truck at 300 meters and began moving fast, the long-legged rolling stride of a running emu eating ground rapidly. You fire from the truck bed, braced against the ammunition cases, trying to compensate for the vehicle's motion with body position. The Lewis gun on the roof rack mount traverses but the vibration from the paddock surface, even the relatively open paddock surface, which still has tussocks and shallow channels, and the general irregularity of uncultivated land, transmits through the steel of the vehicle, and through the gun mount and through your hands, and makes accurate fire extremely difficult. You fire half a drum. The mob reaches the scrub line and disappears. You count 3 animals on the ground in the paddock behind you. 3 from 48 rounds. The truck has a broken rear spring from the paddock crossing. The driver assesses it at the scrub edge and says it will hold to camp, but will need replacement before further heavy cross-country work. The replacement spring is not in the vehicle's kit. It will need to come from Meriden. 2 days delay minimum. You carry the gun back to the truck and sit on the damaged rear wheel arch and look at the scrub line where 200 emus have just vanished. 3 from 48. The scrub is quiet. The emus are gone. Somewhere in the mulga, 200 animals are slowing to a walk, and then stopping, and then, after a suitable interval, resuming their northward movement, their internal compass undisturbed by the interruption. In the evening, Meredith reads the damaged spring report and the day's numbers and writes in his log for a long time. You clean both guns by lantern light. The evening is warm and still, the sky clear, the Milky Way beginning to show at the edge of the dark. The camp smells of gun oil and dust and the wood smoke from the fire you made tea on. The two Lewis guns, cleaned and assembled and ready, lie on their padded cases side by side in the firelight. They are good guns. You have maintained them carefully throughout the operation. Every stoppage addressed, every wear point monitored, the mechanisms clean and properly lubricated. The guns have done what guns can do. The limitation has not been the guns. Jock is sitting on an ammunition box near the fire, writing a letter. He writes slowly, pausing between paragraphs to look at the fire. You do not ask who the letter is to. It is not your business, and the answer is obvious. There is only one category of person a young man writes to slowly and carefully by firelight in a field camp. You finish the gun check and put the lid back on the oil tin and sit back. The fire spits once and settles. The logs are mulga wood from the scrub edge, and mulga burns slow and hot and clean, making coals that glow orange for a long time after the flame is gone. You use this wood on your own farm when you can get it. Tonight it smells like your property, like the Campion district, which your property is part of, which is also where you are. You have not been far from home, geographically. You have been in a different kind of work. Tomorrow the driver goes to Meriden for the spring. You and Jock and Meredith will work the gate positions on foot, carrying the lighter of the two guns, walking rather than driving. Slower, more careful, limited in range but more precise in positioning. You will try something different. You have been trying something different since the first day. You reach into your breast pocket and take out the manifest, the same document you have been carrying since Perth, folded and refolded until the crease lines have nearly separated. You unfold it in the firelight. 2 Lewis guns, 10,000 rounds, 1 week. The week is now 3 weeks. The 10,000 rounds are somewhere south of 7,000, reduced by the confirmed expenditure of the first campaign and the running total of the second. You have counted it twice today and will count it again in the morning, because the number matters now in a way it did not at the beginning. You refold it. The fire burns low. The Southern Cross is overhead now, rotated past the zenith, pointing southwest. Somewhere in the scrub north of the camp, the main mob is settled for the night. 3,000 or 4,000 animals in the mulga dark, their internal clocks already calibrated for tomorrow's movement. They do not know about broken truck springs or ammunition logistics or the running total in Meredith's log. They know about north and water and grass and the ancient instruction that says keep moving. They are keeping moving. You are calibrated for tomorrow too. You put the manifest away and go to sleep. The operational log has become its own object by the 3rd week. Meredith fills it every evening without exception. The day's positions, the rounds fired, the confirmed kills, the weather, the ground conditions, the gun maintenance notes. The log is a standard military issue field notebook. Gray cardboard cover, lined pages, a pencil loop on the spine. He writes in it with the same pencil every time, a short stub that he sharpens each morning with a pocket knife over the side of the table, the shavings falling into the red dirt. You have started reading it when he is not using it. Not surreptitiously. He has not told you not to, and it is not the kind of information that requires restriction. It is simply a record of what you have both been doing, but reading it in sequence from the first day's entries produces an effect that looking at individual days does not. The cumulative record is a different object than the daily record. The daily record is a man doing his job. The cumulative record is the full weight of what has not worked. The shape of the problem is this. The operation is not working, and has not been working, and the incremental improvements in technique that you have made over 3 weeks have not changed this at the level that matters. You are doing better than you were. You are not doing well enough. The date is the 22nd of November, 1932. You are in the second week of the second campaign. The truck spring has been replaced, and the vehicle is operational again. The gate ambush tactic has been refined over 10 days of practice. You know the best approach angles, the ideal range at which to open fire, the drum change sequence that minimizes the pause between bursts. You and Jock have developed a 2-gun coordination at gate positions that makes the engagement more effective. One gun opens first to fix the leading animals. The second gun comes in from a slight angle to catch the dispersal wave before it fully escapes. It works better than a single gun on a single axis, not dramatically better, incrementally better. The increments matter. Today's engagement was at a water trough on the Foster property, the farmer you visited on the first reconnaissance day, the man who showed you the destroyed north paddock without speaking. Foster has been checking the trough daily and flagging the emu visit patterns for you. The trough is concrete, fed by a windmill pump, and sits at the intersection of 2 paddock tracks, making it accessible from 3 directions. The emus have been using it in the early afternoon, when the heat is at its peak and the need for water is greatest. You positioned at the trough before noon and waited. The afternoon heat in late November in the Campion district is serious heat. The temperature reached approximately 38 degrees by 2 in the afternoon, the air above the red earth shimmering in the way that makes distant objects appear to float. You lay in the partial shade of a mulga thicket at the trough's western side, the gun on its bipod in the dirt, the sun hitting the back of your neck despite the hat. The sweat dried as it formed, leaving salt residue on your skin and in the fabric of your uniform collar. You drank from your water bottle at regular intervals. You kept the gun mechanism covered with a cloth to prevent the heat from expanding the metal past its tolerances. 45 minutes of this. Then the emus came. 40 of them, a small group, a fraction of the main mob, using the trough as a separate water source from the main dam to the north. They came from the east along one of the paddock tracks, moving in a loose file, the leading animals already drinking before the rearmost ones reached the trough. You let the leading animals drink. You waited until the whole group was concentrated at the trough. The 40 animals packed close in the available space around the concrete basin. You fired. 14 from approximately 60 rounds. 14 from 60 is the best per round efficiency of any engagement in the operation. 1 kill per 4.3 rounds. You noted this in your own notebook immediately after, while the number was precise. It has not been repeated. The circumstances that produced it, a small, concentrated group at a fixed water source, optimal range, no vehicle vibration, wind correct, minimal scrub cover in the approach zone, are not reproducible on demand. They occurred because 40 emus needed water badly enough that afternoon to ignore their normal caution at an exposed position. 14 from 60. You think about this number and what it represents. If every engagement in the operation had produced this efficiency, 1 kill per 4 rounds, the 10,000 rounds you started with would have produced 2,500 kills against a population of 20,000. That is 12.5%. Not a solution, but a number that might have changed the conversation in Canberra, a number that might have been reported differently in the press. The operation did not produce this efficiency because the conditions did not cooperate. The conditions cooperated this afternoon for 40 emus at a concrete trough on a hot day, and you killed 14 of them. And now you are recording the number because the number is real, even if the conditions that produced it are not. You close your notebook. Meredith is writing his log. The evening light is long and red, the scrub throwing shadows twice the height of the trees. The campfire is small. You have been conservative with wood because the mulga nearest the camp has been stripped, and the next available wood is further than you want to walk at the end of a day like today. He will write something tonight that you will not read until later. Something that he has been working toward in his notes since the second day of the first campaign. A formulation that comes from 3 weeks of watching an animal resist what should be decisive force. He has mentioned versions of it in the daily situation reports. The final version, the one that will appear in his official report to the Department of Defense, and that will be quoted in newspapers and ornithological journals and historical accounts for decades, says that the emus could face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. It is an extraordinary sentence to write about a bird. It is also accurate. You have shot at emus with a Lewis gun on more than 30 separate occasions across 3 weeks. You have watched rounds strike and animals continue. Not always. Many strikes are decisive, the animal going down immediately or within a few meters. But enough. Enough times that the pattern is undeniable. The emu's physical configuration, the low-set heart protected by keel and pectoral muscle mass, the lungs positioned further back than the body's external shape suggests, the layered feathering that can deflect a round that strikes at a shallow angle, means that a hit is not the same as a kill. This is not what you expected. You expected a .303 round at combat range to be a .303 round at combat range. Against infantry it is. Against the emu it is not always. Meredith has not said this makes the emu remarkable. He has simply observed it. The sentence in his report will not be read as admiration when it is written. It will be read as a professional soldier's accounting of a material fact. This animal resists what should destroy it, in the way that a tank resists what would destroy infantry. The comparison is mechanical, not poetic. But you have thought about it in less mechanical terms. On the long days in the heat, lying at a position waiting, you have thought about what it means that this migration continues, not the individual animals. The individual animals die, some of them, the ones the gun reaches cleanly. The migration continues, the 20,000 continue. The ancient route continues. The farms are in the way, and the migration does not accommodate the farms. Not because it is hostile, but because it has no mechanism for accommodation. It simply moves. It has always moved. The operation has been trying to stop something that does not stop. You set the notebook down on the ammunition case beside you. The current total, as of this evening's log entry, stands at approximately 460 confirmed kills. Ammunition expended, approximately 4,700 rounds. You have been in the field, across both campaigns, for 22 days. You have averaged approximately 21 kills per day and approximately 214 rounds per day. At this rate, the remaining ammunition, approximately 5,300 rounds, will last approximately 25 more days. 25 more days at 21 kills per day produces approximately 525 additional kills. Total projected kills at ammunition exhaustion, approximately 985. Against 20,000 emus. You have done this calculation before. You do it again tonight because the numbers have changed slightly and you want the current version. The answer is the same as the previous versions. The answer is that the operation, at any plausible rate of efficiency improvement, cannot produce a result that will meaningfully reduce the emu population of the Campion district. The operation can produce a number. The number cannot be the answer to the problem. You fold the notebook. There is a sound in the scrub north of the camp that you have learned over 3 weeks to identify. The low, irregular booming of emus communicating at close range. It is not the alarm call. The alarm call is different, a sharp bark that precedes the scatter. This is the quiet sound, the within-group sound, the sound the mob makes when it is settled and moving at its own pace. You hear it most evenings. The main mob is somewhere north of the camp, has been somewhere north of the camp for 3 weeks, moving and resting and moving. Staying always ahead of you in the scrub like something that knows it is being followed and has decided the correct response to being followed is simply to keep walking. Jock asks you what the final number will be. You tell him you don't know. He says, "Do you think we're going to run out of ammunition before it's over?" You say, "Define over." He thinks about this. You say, "The emus will still be here when the ammunition is gone. The migration continues regardless. What changes when the ammunition is gone is that the operation ends, which is a different thing from the problem ending." He nods slowly. He is 23 or 24. He has been competent and reliable throughout, and has not complained, and has maintained his equipment, and has followed every order correctly. He asked an honest question, and you gave him an honest answer, which is the most a sergeant can do for the man working next to him. The fire has burned down to coals. The scrub to the north is dark, and the sound from it has gone quiet. The emus are resting. You are tired in the specific way of the 3rd week of a field operation, not the sharp fatigue of the first days when everything was new and required full attention, but the deeper tiredness of sustained effort in difficult conditions, the kind of tired that sleep addresses only partially and that accumulates regardless of how much sleep you get. You drink the last of the tea. The billy has gone cold. You bank the fire, draw the coals together and cover them with ash, the same technique you use on your own farm hearth, the one that keeps viable embers for 6 to 8 hours. A correctly banked fire holds through the night. You have done this every evening of the campaign. It is a small act of maintenance in conditions where most things cannot be maintained, and you do it each time with the same attention you give the gun mechanism. These things are connected. The care you bring to small acts is the same care you bring to the work that matters. The log sits on Meredith's table, closed. You look at the gray cardboard cover in the firelight. Tomorrow the numbers will be different, slightly different. The total will be higher, the remaining ammunition lower. The ratio of kills to rounds approximately the same as today, or marginally better or marginally worse, depending on the conditions at the positions you choose. The numbers will not tell a different story tomorrow. You go to your bedroll. The stars are out in force overhead, the same sky that has been above this camp every clear night for 3 weeks. Scorpius rising in the east, its curved tail bright above the scrub line. Somewhere south of here your farm is sitting under the same sky, the crop standing in the night air, the stone water tank full from last week's rain. Your wife will be finishing whatever the evening's task was and putting out the lamp and going to bed in the house that is also the house you live in when you are there, which you have not been for 3 weeks. You lie on your back and look at the sky. You think about the log entry you would make tonight if you were the one keeping it. Not the numbers. Meredith has the numbers. The other things. The quality of the light at the Foster trough when the emus came in. The sound of 40 birds at a concrete basin in 38-degree heat. The way the gun felt after the engagement. The barrel warm through the cloth you wrapped around it to prevent burns. The mechanism running clean after a full drum in less than 12 seconds. You think about the emu you shot at close range on the second day of the first campaign, the wounded one in the scrub, still moving north. You think about it more often than you expected to, not with remorse exactly, with something more like acknowledgement. It was moving north because north was what it was doing, and you stopped it because stopping it was what you were doing, and the transaction between those two facts was not a moral event, it was simply the event, but the image of it, still moving, still oriented, still going, has stayed with you in a way that the other images from this operation have not. You think about the Western Front, which you do not usually let yourself think about in any detail, because the detail of it is too much, and you have constructed your daily life carefully around that too muchness, building a routine of farm work and maintenance and ledger keeping that occupies the mind sufficiently to keep the detail at a manageable distance. Here in the camp, lying on a truck bed under the same stars that were above Gallipoli and the Somme, the distance is shorter, not dangerous, just shorter. The men who died on the Western Front died from the same kind of round you have been firing. That is a factual connection and nothing more. You know this. The men in the trenches did not have the emus physiology, the low-set heart, the pectoral mass, the deflecting feather layers. The .303 was decisive against them in the way it is not always decisive against the emu. The mathematics were different. You made the mathematics happen. You were good at it. You were good at this too, in the ways it was possible to be good at it. It was not enough. The mopoke calls from the scrub. 2 notes, steady, the same call it makes every night. You close your eyes. The numbers in the log are real. The 14 from 60 this afternoon is real. The 985 projected total is real. The 20,000 is real. The gap between what the operation can produce and what the problem requires has been real since the first day. Sleep comes slowly and then completely. The 24th day of operations. You are up before the alarm, which is unusual, a body that wakes itself before the designated time. is a body that is carrying something it needs to put down before it can rest. You sit on the edge of your bedroll in the pre-dawn dark and drink water and wait for the sky to begin. The sky begins at about 4:15 this time of year, a faint dilution of the darkness in the east, almost imperceptible at first, that grows to gray and then to the pale colors of dawn over the course of 40 minutes. You have watched this sequence every morning for 3 weeks. It has not become less interesting. The transition from dark to light in the Campion district happens with a clarity that the coastal climate does not produce. No marine layer, no mist, just the unmediated sky changing color above flat country. Today the sky is clear, the air is still. It will be hot by 10. You make tea and drink it and check the guns and load the truck and follow the flagging tape north in the dark, the same as every morning. The position today is a new one, a farm lane between the Campbell and Johnston properties, identified 2 days ago during a foot reconnaissance. Campbell walked you to it himself in the late afternoon, the two of you moving slowly along the fence line, while he described the emu movement patterns he had observed. The lane runs between paddock fences for approximately 800 meters before opening into a cleared area near the Johnston waterhole. Emus using the waterhole from the south must travel the length of the lane, which compresses them into a corridor approximately 12 meters wide for the last section of the approach. 800 meters of compression. You reach the position at first light and set up both guns at the lane entrance, covering the full width of the corridor. The wait today is 1 hour and 20 minutes. The main mob comes. Not a small group, the main northern concentration, or a substantial part of it, several hundred animals moving steadily south toward the Johnston waterhole in the early morning. The lane fills from the far end, the leading animals appearing at 800 meters as small shapes in the early light, the mass behind them filling the corridor as far back as you can see. You wait until the leading animals are at 150 meters. You open both guns simultaneously. The engagement lasts 4 minutes. 4 minutes of sustained fire, drum changes, barrel checks, the guns running hot by the end, the mechanism operating at the edge of its thermal tolerance, the dust from the lane churned up by the movement of hundreds of animals and hanging in the air in a red haze that makes visibility difficult in the last minute of firing. When the guns stop, the lane is scattered with fallen birds, the surviving animals long gone into the scrub. You walk the lane. 89 confirmed. You count them twice because the number is higher than anything the operation has produced in a single engagement, and high numbers should be checked. 89. Some of the killed animals are at the lane entrance, some are further back, some are at the far end where the initial fire hit the leading group before dispersal. You mark the positions in your notebook, pacing the distances. Meredith counts with you. He writes the number in the log. 89 from approximately 350 rounds, 1 kill per 3.9 rounds. The best engagement result of the operation by a significant margin. You stand in the lane with the red dust settling around you, and the gun barrel cooling, and the morning heat beginning to build, and you feel the thing that a soldier feels when the work goes exactly right. Not satisfaction exactly, and not pleasure, but the clean, neutral recognition of an action executed correctly, under the right conditions with the right result. The craft of it, the patience of the weight, the correctness of the position, the coordination with Jock on the two-gun opening, the sustained fire management that kept both guns running through a 4-minute engagement without a critical stoppage. It worked. You go back to the truck. You do not speak much on the drive back to camp. Jock is quiet too. Meredith is writing. The driver navigates the corrugated tracks with the focused attention of a man who has been doing it for 3 weeks and has learned every bad section. The revised total as of the lane engagement: 549 confirmed kills, approximately 5,150 rounds expended, remaining approximately 4,850 rounds. The projection arithmetic has changed slightly. At the lane engagement's efficiency rate sustained over the remaining ammunition, the final total would approach 1,500. Still not enough. Still not 12.5% of 20,000. But the day was real. 89 is real. The lane is real. In the evening, a letter arrives from Perth via the weekly mail run that Campbell makes to Meriden every Thursday. The letter is from the Department of Defense, addressed to Meredith, and its contents are summarized by Meredith at the evening meal in 2 sentences. The operation will continue through December as authorized, and a review of its results will be conducted in January with regard to future policy. No extension beyond the authorized period. No additional resources. January review. You eat your field rations and drink your tea. January is 5 or 6 weeks away. The remaining ammunition will not last 5 weeks at current rates. The operation will end before January arrives, ended by the exhaustion of ammunition rather than by any external decision. Unless the rate of engagement increases substantially, more days like the lane, more 89 kill mornings, the final number will be somewhere below 1,000 confirmed kills. Meredith folds the letter and puts it in the log. The fire is low. The night is warm. The scrub to the north is quiet. You wash the tea billy can and hang it on the truck mirror to dry, a habit from the first week that you have maintained because a clean billy can makes better tea than a dirty one, and there is nothing about the current conditions that makes better tea not worth pursuing. You bank the fire. You check the guns one last time. You look at the log on the table. The gray cardboard cover holds 3 weeks of numbers: positions, rounds, kills, weather, maintenance. Every entry honest. Every entry insufficient. The numbers say what the numbers say. You go to your bedroll. The Southern Cross is in its usual position overhead, rotating slowly above the Campion district in the ancient indifference of the southern sky. Somewhere north of the camp, the main mob is out there, still. Tomorrow you will try for another lane. The withdrawal order arrives on the 10th of December. It arrives the same way the suspension order arrived in November, by radio, through the Department of Defense, addressed to Meredith, read aloud to no one in particular at the folding table in the morning. The language is administrative. The operation is concluded. Personnel and equipment are to return to Swanbourne Barracks at the earliest practical opportunity. A formal after-action report is to be submitted within 14 days. You are eating breakfast when Meredith reads it. You finish eating. Then you begin to take the camp apart. The process of taking a camp apart has a different quality than the process of making one. Making a camp is an act of arrangement, of establishing order in a place that had none. Every box and crate going to its designated position, the guns set up in their firing configuration, the fly rigged to give shade, the fire position chosen for wind and safety. It takes attention and produces something functional at the end. Taking a camp apart is the reversal of all of this. It produces nothing at the end except a flat patch of ground that is close to what it was before you arrived, minus the ash of the fire and the post holes of the fly and the tire tracks in the red dirt that will stay readable for months in this dry country. You put the boxes where they were. You case the guns. You fold the table. The gray cardboard log goes into Meredith's kit bag, sealed. You work without hurrying. There is no reason to hurry now. The operation is over. The truck will leave when it is loaded and not before. Jacques dismantles the fly in silence. He has been quiet since the withdrawal order arrived, which is appropriate. There is not much to say. The operation is over and the results are what they are, and speaking about it extensively does not change the results. The ammunition count this morning, before breakfast, approximately 3,100 rounds remaining. You started with 10,000. You fired approximately 6,900 rounds across both campaigns over a total of 32 operational days. The confirmed kill total, as of last evening's log entry, stands at 986. 986 emus from 6,900 rounds. One kill per approximately 7 rounds. The total represents approximately 4.9% of the estimated original population. The emu migration has not been interrupted. The Campion District farms have not been protected in any meaningful sense. The crop damage documented in the farmers' daily reports has continued throughout both campaigns and is continuing today. The fences that were broken at the start of November are broken in new places in December. You carry the last ammunition box to the truck and load it and close the tailgate. Meredith comes to the truck with his kit and the log and stands for a moment at the edge of the camp looking at the place where it was. He is the kind of man who looks at places before he leaves them. You have noticed this throughout the operation, at each engagement site, at the Meriden station platform, at the farm gates where you have spent hours waiting. He looks as though he is storing the image for some purpose that is his own. He turns and gets in the cab. You get in the truck bed. The driver turns south on the Narrabeen Road, and the campsite disappears behind you in the red dust of the truck's wake. The drive to Meriden takes most of the morning. The country passes in the way that country passes when you are leaving it, not as terrain to be assessed, but as itself, the mulga and mallee and red earth of the Campion district in early December. The summer heat already building by 9 in the morning. The sky whitening above the horizon. You have been looking at this country for 32 days. You know specific sections of it now in the detailed way that you know your own property. The long, straight stretch of the Johnston Road where the corrugations are worst. The stand of tall wandu trees on the Campbell boundary that marks the turn for the gate lane. The dry creek crossing 3 kilometers from camp where the ground is softer than it looks, and you have to approach at an angle to avoid bogging. You will not come back to these specific places. At Meriden, you load the equipment onto the train. The Lewis guns in their cases, the remaining ammunition boxes, the vehicle equipment, the camp kit. The station master watches with the same clipboard he had the evening you arrived. He does not ask questions. The train leaves at midday. You sit across from Meredith in the same compartment you occupied on the way out. Jock is at the window again, not sleeping this time, watching the country go past. The interior landscape reverses itself on the return journey. Red earth becoming coastal plain, mulga becoming jara, the sky contracting as the trees get taller and the horizon gets closer and the country starts to feel, incrementally, like somewhere that people have been for a while. Meredith opens the log. He writes in it on the train, the formal summary section at the back, the kind of entry that is written for the report rather than for the daily record. You do not read it over his shoulder. It is not your document. But you know the shape of what it will say because you know the shape of what happened. You look out the window at the country going past. The transition back to coastal landscape takes 2 hours on the train. 2 hours of gradual change, the red earth giving way to paler soil, the mulga thinning and the jara and merry forest beginning, the undergrowth becoming more varied and more green. The sky changes last, the vast, uninterrupted dome of the interior sky becoming something more enclosed as the trees get taller, the horizon dropping in as the vertical world reasserts itself. You spent 12 years not noticing the difference between this landscape and the one you came from. You noticed it the first year when everything was unfamiliar. Then you stopped noticing because you were busy, because there was always work, because the land became the background of your life rather than the subject of it. 32 days in the Campion district has made you notice again. You have been paying attention to the land in a specific way for a month, the way you paid attention to landscape in France, reading it for cover and approach and firing position and risk. The land recorded under this kind of attention is different from the land you work without thinking about. It is more precisely itself. The Campion district, attended to in this way for 32 days, is very precisely itself. You will think about it for a long time. The report, when it is submitted and eventually released, will contain several figures that will be reproduced in newspapers and parliamentary debates and historical accounts. The official confirmed kill figure, 986. The official rounds expended figure, 9,860. Meredith will note in the report that this represents an efficiency of approximately 1 kill per 10 rounds, a conservative figure that averages the full operation and does not reflect the improved rates of the best late engagements. The report will also contain the sentence about the tanks. The Emu, Meredith will write, could face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. They could face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks, and they continued to do so, and the machine guns could not change this. In the House of Representatives, Sir George Pierce, the Minister of Defense, the man who authorized this operation, who has been called the Minister for the Emu War in every newspaper in the country for 6 weeks, will face questions about the operation's results. The questions are not friendly. A member of the opposition asks how it is that the Australian Army has deployed Lewis guns against birds and failed to achieve a decisive result. Pierce answers carefully. He does not deny the result. He notes the challenging operational conditions. He notes the significant numbers of emus killed. He does not note that the migration continued, that the farms are still being damaged, that the emu population of the Campion district is functionally unchanged. He is a politician. He notes what is useful to note. The cartoons continue in the press for weeks. One shows an emu wearing a military medal. Another shows Pierce's face on an emu's body. One, the one you see last, weeks later, in a copy of a Sydney paper that finds its way to the farm via the mailbox, shows a Lewis gun manned by an emu firing at a retreating column of Australian soldiers. The caption reads, "Victorious General." You look at this cartoon for a long time. Then you fold the paper and put it in the woodbox beside the kitchen stove. At Swanbourne Barracks, the debriefing is longer than the first time. 2 officers, a larger notebook, more questions about the operational environment and target behavior and gun performance. You answer everything accurately and completely. You describe the dispersal pattern, the anatomical resilience, the improved efficiency at bottleneck positions, the diminishing returns of vehicle-mounted fire in open country, the lane engagement and its results. You describe what you observed. The officers write it down. You sign the form. You are told that the operational assessment will inform future policy decisions regarding wildlife management in agricultural districts. You are told that your service during the operation is noted and appreciated. You are told that you may now return to your farm. You return to your farm. The drive from Perth to the Campion district takes 3 hours on roads that are familiar now in a different way than they were 3 months ago. The red earth is the same. The scrub is the same. The sky is the same enormous Western Australian sky, the horizon running flat and clear in every direction. You drive the last section of unsealed track with the window down and the morning air coming in, the eucalyptus smell and the dry grass smell, and underneath them the faint iron smell of the red earth that is the smell of this country at its most basic. The farm gate is where you left it. Your wife is in the vegetable garden when you pull up. She stands and brushes dirt from her hands and does not ask how it went, because she knows how it went. She has read the newspapers. Instead, she asks if you want tea. You do. You sit at the kitchen table and drink tea and look out through the window at the north paddock. The wheat crop is standing. It is the best-looking crop you have had in 3 years. The spring rains came at the right time, and the summer heat has been manageable, and the heads are full. If the price holds, and the price is moving in the right direction, slowly, the bottom of the collapse perhaps finally reached. This year's harvest may be the first one in 4 years that produces a real number in the ledger, rather than a loss. The north paddock fence is intact. The section you repaired in August is still holding. The paddock beyond it is undisturbed. You drink your tea. Through the window at the far edge of the north paddock, you see them. Not 3 this time. 12. 15. A small group, a fraction of the migration, moving along the scrub line at the paddock's edge. They are not in the paddock. They are at the edge of it, moving north as they always move north, following whatever is north of here that calls them forward. Their long necks are up and their stride is steady, and they do not deviate toward the crop. Not today. You watch them move along the fence line until they are past the paddock and into the scrub beyond and gone. You finish the tea. You put on your work hat and go out to check the fence. The fence is intact. The post you were worried about, the second from the north end, the one that has been softening at the base for 2 seasons, is still standing, still vertical, still holding its wire. You push it with both hands and it gives a little but not much. You make a note to replace it before winter, before the next migration, which will come in autumn after the breeding season, which will come whether the fence is ready or not. The emus come every year. This is not new. This has never been new. They were moving through this country before the farms were here, before the fences, before the roads, before the nation that sent you out with a Lewis gun and 10,000 rounds to stop them. They were moving through this country when it was simply country, when no one had given any of it a name, when the red soil and the mulga scrub and the flat sky ran without interruption from the southern coast to the northern interior, and the emus moved through it, because moving through it was what they did. They will still be moving through it when the farms are gone. You do not think about this as a defeat, standing at the fence in the December heat with the repaired post under your hands. You think about it as a fact. The farm is here. The emus pass through it. The fence mediates between these two facts, and you maintain the fence, and the fence does what fences do, which is imperfect but better than nothing. But you do not know any of this yet. You are standing at the north paddock fence on a December morning with your hands on a post that needs replacing, and the sun is on your neck, and the wheat is behind you, doing what wheat does when the conditions are right, and the scrub ahead of you is quiet. In January 1934, a year and a month from now, the government will authorize another military operation against the emus in the Campion district. The results will be similar. In 1948, there will be another. The pattern repeats: the petition, the authorization, the Lewis gun, the press coverage, the inadequate result. It repeats because the underlying problem does not change. The emus migrate. The farms are in the way. A gun cannot stop a migration. The solution, when it finally comes, is the one the farmers asked for in 1932 alongside the military request. More fencing, government-supported, properly designed, maintained. The fence does not stop the emus completely. Nothing stops them completely. But the fence reduces the damage to manageable levels. The fence is the answer. The fence was always the answer. A member of Parliament will say, in the House debate following this operation, that if we had a military division which ranks as soldiers, I think they would be the emus, because they could face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. He is quoting Meredith's report, or a version of it. He says it to make a point about the waste of military resources, about the misapplication of force. He is not wrong. The point is a good one. But you were not wasted here. You were here, and you did the work, and the work produced the number it produced, and the number was what it was. That is not waste. That is the operation as it occurred, in the conditions that existed, with the resources that were available. You walk the rest of the fence line slowly, checking each post, testing each wire run. The grass along the fence base is dry and crisp underfoot. There are emu tracks in the soft ground near the gate, three-toed, large, pointing north, probably from last night or the night before. You look at the tracks for a moment. You know this print now. You know the depth of it in dry soil versus wet, the stride length at walking pace versus running, the way the inner toe marks more deeply than the outer two. You have spent 32 days learning this print. You close the gate and walk back toward the house. The heat is building toward midday. The air is still and dry, the sky hard blue above the crop, the kind of sky that means a hot afternoon and a clear night. Your wife is back in the garden, moving steadily along a row of something. Beans or tomatoes, you cannot tell at this distance. The corrugated iron roof of the house catches the sun and throws it back at you in a flat white glare. The farm is here. It is still here. You go inside and pour another cup from the pot and sit at the table, and the afternoon comes in through the window, and the shadows lengthen slowly. And somewhere out in the scrub beyond the north paddock, the emus are resting in the shade of the mulga, waiting for the heat to pass, waiting for the cool of evening before they move again. They will move again. They always move again. The afternoon is long and warm, and the house is quiet. The only sound is the occasional tick of the iron roof expanding in the heat, and the distant sound of the windmill turning in a light northwesterly that has come up since noon. Your wife has come inside and is doing something in the back room. The kettle is cold on the stove. The kitchen smells of the tea and the bread she baked this morning, and the particular dry warmth of a corrugated iron house in summer. You lean back in the chair. The north paddock is there through the window, still and golden in the afternoon light. The wheat heads catch the breeze and move in a slow wave, the whole paddock breathing, and you watch it breathe. This is what you came back for. This is what the farm is. Not the ledger, not the loan repayments, not the guaranteed price or the lack of it. The paddock in the afternoon light, the wheat moving, the fence line straight on the horizon, the sky above it going on without interruption. You came back from Gallipoli for something like this. You built it slowly, over 12 years, out of land that had never been farmed, in a country that did not make it easy. The depression came, and the emus came, and the price of wheat went to 2 shillings a bushel, and you are still here. The farm is still here. The shadows lengthen. The last light goes slowly, the way it always goes in this country, not dropping but fading, the sky holding color long after the sun is gone. The light in the north paddock goes from gold to amber, and the wheat stops being visible as individual heads and becomes a single dark shape against the light. Your eyes are heavy. The chair is solid under you. The afternoon is doing what afternoons do, which is pass, which is become evening, which is take the day somewhere it cannot be retrieved from. You do not need to retrieve it. It was what it was. Outside, somewhere beyond the fence, the country continues in its own way, indifferent and ancient and entirely itself, the red earth and the mulga and the sky going on in every direction without asking anything of you. The windmill turns. The paddock is dark now. You close your eyes. Somewhere in the night, in the Campion scrub, an emu calls, low, resonant, a sound that carries a long way in still air. One note, then silence. Then one note again, from further north, moving away. Always moving. Always north. The sound fades. The night is warm and very still. You are home. Thank you for spending this night in history with Quiet History at Bedtime. If this story stayed with you, a like and a subscribe would mean more than you know. It helps this channel keep making stories like this one, and it helps the next listener find their way here. Good night.